Welcome to Building 72, the podcast brought to you by the Entertainment Arts and Engineering program at the University of Utah. Thank you for joining your hosts, Adam Hunter and Corrinne Lewis, to talk about the video game industry and, probably other stuff.
Welcome back to Building 72, everybody. I hope you're all having a wonderful day. We're certainly having a good day around these parts. My name is Adam Hunter, as you know, and with me always is Corrinne Lewis.
Hi, everybody.
And today's guest is a man who works in the mystical field known as technical arts. So we're gonna talk all about that and what that means. So this is Utsav. Utsav, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us how you got to where you are and what road you took to get there?
No, for sure. And thank you for having me. And my name is Utsav. My official job title is Technical Art Consultant at Unity Technologies. And I'm part of a team that's called Professional Services. I think they just changed the names to Unity Accelerate Solutions. I can talk more about that. But I was in cohort 6. I went to technical art emphasis. I went to EAE with a technical arts emphasis, but my bachelor's was in computer science. So I was more of a coder. In fact, I even submitted a code sample with my application. I was pretty proud of that code sample. So I think I didn't know a lot about technical art when I came to EAE. All I knew was, hey, I can code and you need to code to make games. That's pretty much that was my complete information of games. I did not know Maya existed. I did not even know Unity existed. Like if you would have told me, hey, do you know Unity? I would have been like, I don't know what you're talking about. So everything that I've learned about game development has been after I joined EAE. Before that, my knowledge was strictly computer science. After I left EAE, I joined a mobile studio called Play Studios. We make slot games. So I was there for a year. Then I left that for Fox Next Games. I was at Fox Next Games. They make Marvel Strike Force. They also were making a different product at the time, Storyscape. That's what I worked on for a few months. Then I came back to Play Studios as a senior technical artist. And then recently in January, I actually started at Unity as a technical art consultant. So that's the summary of my last 4 or 5 years.
That's awesome. We need to talk offline. We need to talk about Fox Next because I know a couple of people who work there. So we need to play the
for
game.
Sure.
So you said you didn't know anything about game development before you came to the EAE program. With your bachelor's in computer science, were you still planning on hopefully going into games, even though you didn't know anything about game development, or were you maybe more pointed in a different engineering direction?
Right. So in college, the only thing related to games I did was there was a cricket game. So this is back in India. So there was a cricket game and it took normal inputs from your keyboards. And in MATLAB, we did image processing to change the input from keypad to a laptop camera or a webcam. And that's when I knew, hey, I want to do something in gaming because it was cool. It was like I found computer science boring up until then. And that was the 2-day boot camp was like, this is what I want to do. So I didn't know what technical art was. So essentially, I started looking at computer science programs that were game design oriented. And I looked at Rochester, I looked at DigiPen, and I stumbled upon EAE with technical art. And the reason I even found that was like, I was looking at, hey, I have Photoshop skills and I know computer science. What can I do in games, like apart from coding? It was like, hey, technical art maybe a thing for you. And I saw EAE had one. I read through the program. I read through what technical art was. And I was like, hey, this sounds like I can use code to do artistic work. I'm going to give it a shot. That was pretty much it. And then and beyond that, I just started applying to schools. So I did apply to some CS programs just in case this doesn't pan out. I knew I wanted to study more. So I was like, hey, maybe I'll just do AI, like AI or ML or something like that. But game dev was like my highest priority because all the other computer science work seemed boring to me. Also, I was a little naive. I didn't know a lot back then what computer science world entailed.
Well, we fooled you.
No, I'm very glad that I made the decision that I did. I'm where I am because of the decisions I made, and I'm pretty happy with those.
Well, game development is so team oriented. I mean, not that coding isn't, but coding is kind of like you check in your code and you sort of have to deal with some other people sometimes, but not all. But like our whole shtick is that
Sorry
you,
about my cat.
oh, it's fine. It's fine. Oh, it's cute.
And never apologize for cats.
Yes.
Never, ever.
Yes. If you're just listening to this, it's super cute cat, white cat.
Thank you.
But you know, the whole team aspect is sometimes pretty daunting for people when they get into it, because they, you know, when you think about yourself as a single contributor to something is a very different thing than a team member, and that sometimes is rough.
Yeah, no, definitely. And also I think how oriented, team oriented game development is, like everything is so dependent on everybody else. The reason it's hard to make an indie game is not because, hey, it's just hard to make a game. It's because you need to know like 10,
Everything.
100 different things to
Mhm.
actually do that. So I definitely think that's one of the harder parts of making a game versus computer science.
Yeah, I agree. I think I mean, it's certainly how EAE got started, right? Because when Bob first started talking to our industry friends, they were like, well, we need help, teaching artists to talk to engineers, because and engineers talk to artists, because they don't speak the same language, because they've never had to do that together. And now here in our studio, they really have to. And that was the thing that was so interesting to me when we first started seeing technical artists, because it's like your brain actually works both ways. And you really can talk to the artists, and you really can talk to the engineers. And for you can do both things really well, very proficiently. So it's such a rare skill. And Mark had said for years, this is something that we need to help people get better at. So
Yeah, no, for sure. And also I think I think technical art is just such a widely used term, but I think the one major thing, or at least the one core thing about technical art to me, is understanding art in terms of data. As in what is art? Art is just a visual representation of data that somebody's hand painted, right? So technically, if you wanted to change that visual representation, you could change the data. And if you can understand how the change of data can affect the visual element of that file, that's essentially technical art. At least in my head, that's what technical art means. And then it just sounds awesome to me, I guess.
I really like that. I don't think I've ever heard anybody describe it that way before, and I really, really like that.
I'm glad. No, I was telling this to the other. So the other day I was talking to one of my coworkers, and he's from a more gameplay system design kind of person, and we were having a similar conversation where he was like, "Hey, like I don't do a lot of graphics. I'm trying to learn." And I explained to him the exact same way what graphics was, and he was like, "I wish somebody would have told me, to look at it that way, and then I would have done more graphics work." And I'm like, it doesn't matter how you look at it. I think if you have interest, you just find your way to what you enjoy if you go that route.
So on that note of like doing what you enjoy, you had said, you had your BS in CS, or I guess that's how that works. And then you said you knew Photoshop. Did you have a lot of art background, like from when you were growing up, or any of your other schooling?
No, not at all. Like I still cannot make production ready art. That's not. I start an interview by letting people know that if you expect me to do production level art, that's not what I'm going to do. My art experience before was doing posters for college events in Photoshop that I just picked up because I was like, somebody has to do it, I'll do them. And it looked cool. I was like, hey, I could design some cool posters, right? Use some cool brushes, hand draw some cool, things. Nothing to, detail, nothing that needs to go in front of thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. So I was like, I can do that. That was it. That was basically it.
Okay. And then did you have any experience with CS before your bachelor's degree? Like, had you been coding for a while?
High school. So
Okay.
in India, you can take computer science in high school if you want. I decided to take it. It didn't seem that hard. It's generally like I like coding. I like math. I work. My brain's very logical in a way. Like I think about things logically more than I do emotionally, I guess. So it just made sense for me to like go into computer science and do those kinds of. I actually wanted to be a neuroscientist and then work at NASA. So
I mean,
Wow.
you're doing pretty cool stuff now, but that's also really cool. I have some students who will occasionally come up to me and they'll be a little bit worried because they'll say, I'm already in college now and I've never really tried coding before. and so I'm too late, right? Like
Yeah.
if I haven't been coding since high school, or if I haven't been coding since elementary school, it's too late for me to pick that up. Do you feel that that's the case?
Definitely not. I mean, so like I didn't have a clue what Unity was, right? And I work at Unity right now. So like, and Unity is a completely different language. I'd never done C#. I'd done some Java. I hated Java. I still hate Java, even though I like C#, right?
Doesn't
I'd done
everybody
C++.
hate Java?
I hope so.
I have a friend that's like, he is an expert Java programmer and adores it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Somebody always does.
I mean,
it's-
somebody
it's-
has to, right?
Yeah, he's the
Or he
one.
wouldn't use it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
To be fair, he works at Blue Origin, so.
I mean, I think you've got to love Java to do that. Yeah.
So let's actually talk about Unity for a second. What, like, okay, so you mentioned, you're on the kind of like services side, or I forgot the term that you used for it. What is your job at Unity? What do you do on like a day-to-day basis? What kind of responsibilities do you have?
Right. So what I do, I am essentially a consultant that works for Unity and helps our customers. So essentially, if there's a team using Unity and they have, depending on the kind of engagement they've worked out with Unity, they could have a custom contract where it's a long-term engagement where we would be expert advisors to their teams, maybe even help develop tools or features for their team. And that'll go on for a few months. The second kind of engagements, or like the second kind of work that we do, is project reviews, which could come in multiple different ways. It's technical architecture review, the technical art review. It could be code and assets review. And that is more, we spend about 2 days going through minute details of the project, like what Unity packages are you using? How have your systems been developed? Are your systems data driven or behavior driven? Like all of like very nitty, very technical stuff. And then if we can, we help them during the time we're there. But otherwise, what we do is we go back, go through source code or ask questions if they have any problems, or if we have other solutions, we'll find those. And then either give them some code or at least a full report telling what we found, how they can fix it, and how to improve performance or the entire design of their game. So it's a very holistic, you have to take a very holistic approach to game development.
Wow, that sounds so cool.
Yeah, that is fascinating.
You're probably seeing some of the most amazing products and projects. And oh my gosh, Utsav, this is so good for you because you're so you are analytical, but you also can talk. So that's nice. That's not always the skill sets that's together, right?
That's interesting. I never thought about it that way, but yeah, that's probably right. And I think a lot of my team, I think that you would see a lot of that in my team. So
That's awesome.
So I think you're absolutely right. You've hit the nail on the mark. But it's pretty interesting because I recently, over the last month or so, I've been on like 4 different games that I've had to review.
Yeah.
From mobile to like console titles, right? And they all have similar problems on different scales.
Oh my gosh.
And that's about it, right? And it's pretty interesting to be able to see that. And I think I've learned so much in the last 2 months, and it's actually been so cool to just work here for a couple of months.
I bet that sounds so amazing. Like oh my gosh, that just sounds like the perfect job for you.
Funnily enough, did you remember Vega?
Yeah.
She said the exact same to me. She's like, that sounds like the job for you. And I'm like, I don't know why everybody says that, but I guess I'll take it as a compliment.
You should take it as a compliment because I think that certainly, you have an ability to see things very clearly that are wrong.
That's yeah, I will take that as a compliment.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that a compliment, Corrinne?
It
Dive
is.
deeper into that.
When you're working with a bunch of people that are your peers, it can be hard,
Yeah.
but as a job, and it's so valuable to a company because you can really see where to fix things, right? Like you're really good at seeing where to fix things.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so
no. I mean, that's and I think that's pretty interesting because like our team is generally the team that files most bugs on Unity's source engine, and we're the ones who are talking to Unity's R&D teams, and we're telling them, hey, this is how our customers expect to use Unity, and then this is what they don't find in Unity. Or on a daily basis, we'll be going through like rendering pipeline and find something, and I also think it's pretty interesting because I feel like this job will teach me how to be polite when telling people that they're doing things wrong.
Well, that's a good skill for all of us.
So do you feel because you had mentioned earlier about, regular CS stuff is boring and you like game development because it's cool. Do you feel having been in, I want to make sure I'm phrasing this correctly, having been at other game companies and having been in the program where you were doing kind of direct game development, does this fill that game development need inside you to have your hands like helping out so many other teams?
It depends from project to project, but for the most part, yes. Because if I'm doing a project that is in pre-production, then I'm talking more about TDD, their technical design document and their technical art pipeline and how they want to set that up the best way they can. But for like 70 to 80%, from at least from what I've understood in the past 2 months, is going to be more where the game's already in production, may possibly close to release, but generally midway through production. And they're like, hey, now we need to know what to optimize and how to go about and how to find things. Because we don't just tell them what's wrong. We like sometimes we would go through like profiling their entire game in front of them, where we would go through like function markers and we'll be like, hey, this is how long this frame is taking, and this is how long this draw call is taking. And this is why it's taking so long. And these are like 5 different things you could do in the rendering pipeline to fix it. So we would do that in front of them. So what that really brings me is that I feel like I'm contributing to the solution, because the cool part about game development to me is that every day you're solving a problem, at least in my role, right? And my role is not busy bee kind of role. My role is generally like, hey, your VFX artist needs a shader that works with X thing, or hey, that artist can't export his FBX file, or hey, our game's frame rate is garbage. Can we please fix this, right? So I think every day is a new problem. And for me, that's why technical art and game dev is so cool. And I think this job, for the most part, does that. And I can't expect it to be 100%, to be honest, at least knowing my previous jobs.
I love that. And, I think you make a good point about solving problems. I mean, that's why we like games, right? Like games give us problems. And the fact that making games also gives us problems, it's such a good way of thinking about things. I always, you can make games and not love games, but it helps. It really helps.
It definitely helps. I think being able to think about games in a way that makes you feel good about them, and then just, you can enjoy that. And then I think one thing that has always been in my head is like, hey, am I doing something that's actually benefiting someone, right? And like,
Right.
I was working on like casino games before, and I didn't feel great about it, but hey, it was a decent job, right? You have to start somewhere. But I think it's not just that. I guess there's a lot more to work than that, right? And for me, game dev is like a constant puzzle that you're trying to solve, and what's more fun than that, right? Like, especially when that's your work, that's when that's what you get paid to do. I mean, and of course things get intense sometimes, right? Like some of our clients were in Japan and other places, so I had to do 6 a.m. meetings. But it's not like I'm working 10 hours. I'll work 6 to 3, but it's still like awkward times depending on clients and Zoom and stuff. But if you like your job, you kind of don't mind it that much, I guess, is the point.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah.
I actually kind of want to talk about, you mentioned Zoom just barely. What has it been like? What has it been like starting a new company and starting not only a new company, but kind of a different career path, or at least a slightly different career path? What is it like starting that in the middle of like a working from home pandemic? How has been like the onboarding and the, getting to know to the team and stuff like that?
Right. I mean, yeah, that's been really different. It's interesting. I'm glad it was at Unity, because I think Unity did a pretty good job of giving me enough time. And another thing at Unity that they ask us to do is like, hey, book one-on-ones with all of your team members if you can over the next few weeks that you're here. So I've been doing that and then meeting my team members that way. It really sucks for me though, because I have heard that our office up here is really cool and I want to go check it out. It's on the 9th floor and you can see like Mount Rainier from it, and I can get freshly brewed coffee or beer if I want. So I'm like, I really want to go to my office. I've been to San Francisco office when I wasn't even a Unity employee, and now that I am. So that part sucks. And obviously I think getting to know the team in person is just a different experience. I think because I guess you don't know, how a person would react, or if, or what their body language is, or things like that. Even if they have their cameras on, right? If I know you, then it's different than if I don't know you, because I know what to expect. So I think that's definitely different and challenging in a way. But I do think Unity made it a little bit easier.
Are they talking to you about when you're going to go back into the office at all?
So they haven't like told us dates, but they're like, as things are coming back, they are thinking of like somewhere after summer or late summer, fall, that they come. I'm hoping that I get to work from home a couple of days a week,
Yeah,
just because
right.
I'm about 30-40 minute commute away, and I don't want to do that 5 days a
Right.
week. But
I think,
but yeah.
yeah, I think our lives are going to be very different. I think everybody knows that they can work from home just fine. So,
Especially like in our kind of field, right? Like it's mostly digital work. Like you don't need to be in place.
well, and the other thing, it's like go to the office in the days that you need to do in-person meetings, and then you just at home you just have a lot more focus time, So unless
Yeah, no.
you're like me, who is nuts, so over being
Yeah,
home
unless you're like Corrinne, who breaks down the door of the building so that she can be there in person, even if she's the only
by
person.
myself.
No, I completely understand that, because like I don't know if I'd call myself an extrovert. I know a lot of people think I'm an extrovert, but I feel like I'm more comfortable with people I know. That's why they think I'm an extrovert, because I'm already friends with them. But it's hard for me to like be extroverted with new people, I guess. So I'm not completely an introvert, but still I'm over being home. Like at this point, I'll take 5 days of going to work than working, remotely for 2 to 3 days, just because I want to go back to work. And it has nothing to do with like I can work from home. I miss it. I miss meeting people. I miss grabbing a beer after work. I miss making friends with my teammates, and I do think that that helps your work as well, because you're you ask the stupid questions if you think that that other person is not judging you. And especially for my job, that's a very important skill to have. Like I have to ask stupid questions to my R&D teams and other people that know more things than me, right? So yeah, I wish I could go back.
We
I'm
will.
really, I'm really glad that you said that, because I always try and cement that idea with students. Is like, you're going to be working around these people for 40 plus hours a week. That's more time than you see like some of your family and your friends. And so having that like camaraderie and the little things that you said, like being able to judge someone's body language, or being able to just go over to their desk and be like, hey, do you have 5 minutes to talk about this? That kind of stuff is
I miss
so
that. Like I have to check and see, do you have time to Zoom? And are you going to turn your camera on? And you're not going to turn your camera on. And I'm like, okay, maybe I won't turn my camera on then. It's like,
yeah, there's just too much etiquette to follow.
yes. Although I have, what's been really fun is seeing people's houses. Because, I mean, even if it's just one wall, right? Because it's like people are more who they are, right? When we're in our offices, maybe people bring, stuff in, but maybe not. And so
yeah. I mean, you could probably you've probably seen my cat jump around. We just put that up last weekend, the weekend before. So well, that was a lot of work. But yeah, no, I do. It's interesting, because I think you get to see a little piece of them. Like because I think at work people can put up a facade if they want. But like I guess when you can peek into just a little part of their home, especially the part where they spend most of their time.
Well, and most people are, lots of people don't have the luxury of an office. I mean, I'm super lucky. So, Adam actually had to build his. So lots of people are just at their kitchen table, and you can see their kids and their family and all of, all the things. And it's like, I think it's just making us a lot more human again with each other. So.
Yeah, and I also think once this is over, we'll come back with a lot of force.
I have been saving up money to travel.
Hopefully we get to do it.
Yes.
So do you think that, you talk about like coming back in force, do you think that, because technical art kind of as a concept and as a field is relatively new, right? Like people were always kind of doing various things, but they didn't quite know what to call it. Do you think technical art as a whole, like, is there going to be a lot more crossover between engineering and art in the future, or is it going to stay reserved for kind of the subset of people who can do both?
No, I think moving forward, a lot of content is going to be code powered, I guess is the way to put it. I think Unity Art Engine, and then Unreal has its own ML thing to like upres your textures and like create patterns and textures. And I think that's only going to get better. And I think our graphics techniques are so sophisticated at the moment that we could generate, all of our art data on the fly and render it without an artist ever being part of the pipeline. I mean, it's not to a point where we can do it in the way it looks right now. And obviously there's still people who need to do lighting and actually design and do the concepting, right? But I think actually making production ready art, I don't think that's a thing that's going to be the same. When it comes to technical art, I think it's an interesting line in between, because I think technical art is mostly divided into two subsections. One is graphics programming, straight up graphics programming. The people call themselves technical artists, but they can write better shaders than 90% of programmers can for sure. Like I know people like that, right? And I think the second subset is art pipeline and tools. And obviously there's a third set of like technical animators and riggers, but I would call them more in the sense of like content. They're more content focused. And a lot of people I think a lot of studios have gone towards the technical animator job title for those kinds of roles, and rigger instead of technical artist. So I think when it comes to technical art, which I think was your original question, I think it's going to keep increasing in future. And I think you're going to have more intertwinement between code, but I also think you're going to need to know more about art, because you're going to need to do a lot of artwork through code. And in order to do that, you need to understand composition. You need to, understand just what is your limits in terms of word data, what is your limit in terms of texture data, how much can you push through. Like there's a lot of things to think about. I think a lot of times people like simplify content creation a lot. It's like, oh, it's just an artist like creating an asset and then another artist texturing and then animating it, but it's a lot complicated. And I don't think that pipeline's going anywhere, if that's the question.
For sure. We had a talk from Side Effects earlier this week from the people who make Houdini, and they were talking about this cool like procedural scattering thing where you could basically like, hey, we want to make a forest, but we only want these flowers to appear at the bases of these trees. And he kind of went off on this just really, really cool thing. But then he doubled back and he said, now keep in mind, you still have to have those fundamentals like composition and stuff like this will help you generate it as a starting point. But it's not that you just push the button and now your entire level is completed, because you still need that human eye going in there and figuring it out.
And I think the best way to put it is an artist is not just an artist, it's also a designer. Like an artist is designing that asset piece. He or she is not just making something because it looks cool. It's like there's a lot of thought that goes into it. Maybe you don't understand art in a technical way, but you understand art in a design way, which is just equally as important. So it's just a different pipeline in terms of production artists aren't going to be the default production artists people think of, but I think they're going to be more about visual design and how to put that forward and make it even better, because I think games are going to keep looking better and better as we keep moving forward.
Well, I think actually you proved that point, like you prove it, because you were doing poster design, right? And learning the tools for that. And that's like, that has to be able to read correctly, to get your message out there. You're having to practice placement and color theory and all of those kinds of things. And you're not thinking that as art, but that graphic design part, all those skills have informed how good a technical artist you are.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. I think those things, yeah. So it's just, I guess I just say it in different ways, but like visual design, that element of art production, I think is getting more intense in game development rather than getting less intense.
Yeah, and I mean, over the years, we've definitely seen people who have come into the technical art track and realize they don't have that, and so they go back over to the programming side, which is fine. I mean, we need excellent tools programmers, right? And and you can be really good at something and realize that you're, what am I trying to say? When you when you are not good at something, but you can help somebody who is good at it is still just as valuable, right?
No,
Like, so,
absolutely. I think that's what a technical art is, right? I cannot make production ready art. My hands just don't work that way.
right.
If I wanted to, I couldn't, right? So what I do is help my team members, because I'm not. It generally a lot of the times technical artists is never generating content, right? You're never actually making directly anything that's going into the game. All you're doing is making sure your team has all the tools they need and resources they need to make the game. And I think that's very important, because if you end up making a tool that saves an hour from 40 artists over like a year, that's more
Exactly.
manpower saved than spent on you.
Yeah. I remember, I don't know if you took any classes from Ian Gilmore. Do you
Yeah,
remember?
I did one.
Yeah. So, I mean, and he's at a studio in England now, and I can't remember where he's at, but I remember him saying that. It's like, look, we don't have to, just like programmers, we don't have to be on the front.
Yeah.
But we make it go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you know what, talking about systems programmers, it's a technical artist's best friend would be a systems programmer who understands how to design systems without dependencies. And like, because as a technical artist, what do? I want to inject my code and tools into different systems, and I want them to work with as minor a work or as minor like a breakdown in the process for other people that I possibly can. And for that, I need a well-designed system that I can scale, when I need to, by adding tools. And for that, I need to have somebody who knows how to design and write a system. And writing a system for games is way different than writing a system for an app, right? Like for an app, you're writing small functions, you're like doing a lot of API calls. Or for game, you want to make a one bigger system because there's a lot going on. And it's like, I could go into technical stuff all day, right? I don't want to, because it's just, I know people get bored of that. But I just mean like, I love systems designers, or at least good ones.
Right. Well, it's such an interesting job that you're doing, because you're client facing. That is pretty, I mean, like I said, like you can talk, which is awesome, because not everybody can. But the fact that you can explain what you're doing, to laymen, I mean, although game developers aren't technically like that, but they are, have problems to solve. And I just think it's such a great job.
I mean, no, that's actually completely right. Not because game developers don't know what they're talking about, but because, there's generally one or two, tech director in there. They don't know everything. They probably know a lot about maybe animation system or their graphics pipeline, but not about art pipeline. So like, you still have to, like, there's also producers you got to talk to. Like, everybody has a different specialty. There's just so many things. So I agree with that being able to talk to people and explain to them what's happening without going into the dirty stuff. I think that's very valuable. And I think that's what designers plus technical artists do best.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with that. So, but do you do a lot of like, I mean, what does your day look like? Is it every day's totally different?
Not totally. So generally, so like last week, or this week rather, I should say, I was in meetings 1, 2, 3, and then 5 through 7, my time, which was for some other team members, different times. And that was the time I was actively like, I had my PS4 dev kit connected with my computer, and like I was profiling actively, like GPU profiling, and looking at what's happening and talking to the developers and telling them what's happening. And in my free time, I was either writing a report for a separate project that I did for previous week, or I was, talking to my R&D teams or asking other team members about some graphics problems that they were having, some, like API calls they were making. Generally, if I don't have projects, then I'm spending that time on writing reports or something. We also have some downtime because you don't always have projects. So we get this time called personal development time, which is like, you're supposed to get at least 2 weeks every quarter. You could get more, but at least 2 weeks. So in that time, I'm doing some other project that is not game related at all. That's my time. So I get to choose that project. I'm doing something related with machine learning, but that's if I don't have a project. So that's what my day-to-day looks. It's very different from day to day.
Do you feel that degree of you mentioned it's like putting together a big puzzle. Do you feel that there's and maybe I already know the answer to this question. Do you feel like there's a degree of creativity behind it, where it's like, hey, we have to? I guess maybe the question I'm asking is, do you still feel that creative? Does it feel like as if you have created something to be like, aha, I have now figured out the solution, and that scratches that same creative itch? I guess.
Absolutely. I don't know if I'm supposed to say that word, but I just had to do it
We'll live.
I think because I think you have to be creative to solve problems in games, because problems don't come in one way or the other. I guess, like, even if I'm working on a mobile title, I still have content delivery problems that I would have on a PS4 title, right? And I think both of them need vastly different solutions to work, and you have to be creative because each game will have a different problem. So you have to think creatively. You can't apply the same solutions to same problems, even though it's the same problems, they're at different scales or with different systems. So I think having that understanding that, hey, I know I did that, but that doesn't sound right for this one. Maybe let me try this, or hey, let me pack some extra data in this file. Let me add this metadata. Like, I feel like the creativity comes in thinking about those solutions, and not per se in like what you're making, I guess, but it's the solution that you find.
That makes sense. I love that.
I wanted to ask about something that sorry, Corrinne, did I cut you off?
Nope.
I apologize. This is more of just an opinion question. Is, you mentioned graphics aren't going away anytime, and we're always making them better and everything like that. Obviously, for the rest of forever, right? As long as Moore's law holds true, we're gonna have faster computers and we're gonna have better computers. And so people are always going to be improving processes, and they're going to be improving graphical fidelity of art. But do you think that, are we now, or are we closely approaching a point at which, like, things are looking good enough that we're not going to be worrying about that stuff so much? Because, like, I remember when Gears of War came out and everyone was like, you know what? Graphics are good enough now that we don't really have to worry about it. We can now focus more on gameplay. And then obviously here's where we are now, right? Do you think that that's going to be a constant thing? Like, we're always going to be fighting for that? Or do you think it's going to be something that, like, are we going to reach a point at which it's like, you can't get better than photorealistic? So once we reach that point, then we don't need to expend as much stuff to try and improve these systems.
That's a really interesting question. I think for two reasons. One reason, I personally thought PS3 was pretty high visual fidelity, but what happened beyond that was we got 4K screens.
Yeah.
And once you pack more pixels into a screen, you need more data to fill that screen. Then you need your computers, your chips to compute more data. So I think graphical capacity will continue to increase, not because that we have to get better graphics, but because we're going to get better screens, and you're going to be able to see more details, and then those details need to get added. Also, I do think that in terms of like real-time graphics, there's a long way to go. I think in terms of rendering movies, I think you can get photorealistic. You can make a whole game CG generated, a whole movie CG generated, and it would look like live action. Mm-hmm. But you cannot do that with the game. It does not look that well, right? And that comes from ray tracing, right? And we can do ray tracing, but it still has a lot, like we're doing a lot of trickery to actually get that working, right? And our computers just aren't strong enough. So I think because our computers are going to keep getting better, and because our screens are going to keep getting better, that we're going to keep pushing visual fidelity. But I think for the time we're in, our visual capacity is already pretty high. So I don't know if that makes any sense, because that's how I think it has gone since PS3.
Yeah. I mean, I think we also have to recognize that there are some environmental costs to constantly, having to throw out our old video cards. And, I think that we're, as an industry, we're going to have to start like making decisions about, like, do we need to push this every single year? Because that's kind of irresponsible,
Yeah.
But what can we do technologically to make it faster or better or more elegant code or more, more tightly managed memory and those kinds of things? I think that's actually why we need really good technical artists.
Yeah, see, I never thought about it that way, but now the more I think about it, I'm like running 4 systems in my home all the time, and I'm like, that does not sound very eco-friendly. And yeah, we probably should optimize our systems more so that we don't have to keep buying new graphics and all. Yeah, so couldn't agree more.
Yeah, and I don't think NVIDIA is going to keep up. So too much Ethereum mining or Bitcoin. I don't know what anybody's mining right now.
People are mining too much and doing little.
Right.
We're actually facing that problem right now, where we need some new computers for the lab, and AJ is talking to different bidders, and a lot of like the smaller like mom and pop shops are like, we can't get graphics cards right now. Like
Yeah.
we can bid you computers without graphics cards.
Yeah, they're really, yeah, people are paying a lot of money for that. It's the same with consoles, PS5s, new Xboxes. It's just all the bots, I think. All
I
the bots
know.
just keep grabbing them up.
I know I still don't have a PS5. It's really bananas.
Yeah, I'm not trying to get one right now. I'm like, I'm gonna wait till it's
I
in
just
stock.
gave up. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, I fight against that current. Absolutely not.
nuts.
Do you have any advice for someone who wants to be a technical artist as to what their portfolio should look like? Should they be showcasing their tool? Should they do a video walkthrough of how their tool works? Like how can someone demonstrate their skills without just saying, here's my code, look at it?
Right. I think it's important to like make a distinction as to where you want to go. I mean, you can be a generalist, but that's really hard to present in a good way. If you think you can present that in a good way, go for it. But I think a better way of going about it is define yourself. Like, hey, are you a Python scripter? You don't have to do tools. Do you just do Python? Put a lot of Python scripts in there. Doesn't even have to be game tools or stuff like that. Or hey, it's like, hey, do you actually, make production ready art, but use tools to do that? And just maybe put a 5-minute time-lapse video of you doing that and using your tool. If you do a lot of shader work, I think instead of showing shader code, 90% of the people you show shader code to will not understand shader code. So instead of showing shader code, maybe just do a 10-second skim through of shader code, and then the remaining 50 seconds of your video should be you showing what that shader can do, if it has properties, or in what engine did you build it, or that kind of things. But I think most of all, if you have games, put them out. Like you've gotta put games out. I think the reason people want to see games is not because, hey, we don't think you can do the work. It's because it's hard to finish a game.
Mhm.
It's easy to start one. It's hard to finish one. It's hard to do everything, put everything together and make it work. So if you can do that, if you've been a part of that process especially as a technical artist, I think that says a lot about, hey, you've helped put those systems together. You've helped bridge those gaps to bring this product to the finish line. And I think as a technical artist, that's very important. So I would say more than any tools or code, if you have games, put those in and maybe give a brief description of what you did on that game, and that's the best you could do.
What if you had something that wasn't a full game, but it was like, hey, this was a procedural city building something or other. So it's like, I don't have like a playable experience, but I made a thing that will destroy buildings when they get exploded.
Yeah,
like,
that's
that
awesome. Yeah, no,
okay.
that's awesome. And it doesn't, like, I think when I say a game, it's a finished product, right? And
Yeah,
a finished
okay.
product could be anything. It could be a procedural world you created. It could be a pipeline that you wrote where you press one button and it makes an asset go from Maya to Unity and working and optimized, right? It could be any of those things, but it has to be a finished product. Like, if it's finished, it's going to hold way more value and sway over just unfinished. It doesn't even have to look pretty. It has to look finished, feature complete.
Right. I love that. That's actually such great advice.
We need to have, like, on the screen right now, don't look pretty, look finished. I love that. That is
just
fantastic.
had a whole lecture. I was lecturing my class. It's perfection is the death of done. Done is more important.
Yeah, and a lot of times I think this one thing, like, at least I had this problem going into industry, was I was stuck on, like, hey, this is the right way to do things, and it doesn't matter what the right way to do things is. If it works, it works.
Yeah.
I've always heard
how simple it is.
I've heard the term, if it's stupid and it works, then it's not stupid.
Yeah. I mean, you'd be surprised.
One of my most favorite quotes is from Duke Ellington. It's, if it sounds good, it is good.
Yep, I like that.
Yeah. Because I think academics a lot of time, like, or at least I did, because I'd never, like, been professional capacity before, or at least not in game sense, and I'd only been academic my entire life. So I was stuck in, like, hey, you have to do things like, you have to, like, go structure your code this way, never copy code. There's no game that doesn't have copied code in it. Let me tell you that right now.
Yeah.
I heard
a thing.
I
but
heard
not inside a game engine, it's like it's a company's property, right? So.
Yeah.
I heard that yesterday on April Fool's Day, I heard that GitHub released a feature that said, like, you're only allowed so many copy pastes per month unless you do, like, a
Imagine that. Yeah.
And the game industry grinds to a halt at that point.
Massive troll. Woo!
Yeah, I mean, it's not even game industry. I think it's just like, why reinvent the wheel, right? Like, I think or you can like, I'm not even kidding. There are AAA studios that I've worked with that have used $40 asset packages from Unity Store.
Yeah.
You know why? Because there's no point spending money what's already done.
Yeah.
You can change that up a little bit if you need to, right? But why spend 2 weeks of a developer's time? You're paying them 6 figures when you can buy it for $50.
Yeah. And I think supporting those, small producers of those things is perfectly fine, right?
Yeah. And so I think it's good, just make it work.
Yeah, right. I mean, if then statements, that's all it is, right?
If only.
If only.
Yeah, how's that for trivializing the entire world of engineering? It's just if then statements. Don't even worry about it.
I wish it was that easy. I feel like my job right now is more intense because I'm looking at systems holistically, but previously it was much easier.
Yep. Oh my gosh, we are like
almost. Wow.
I can't believe how fast. Oh, I always say that it goes so quick.
It actually does go real quick. I did not even realize.
I know, right? So we are at the rapid fire question segment of our fun podcast.
Oh, the most fun segment.
I know. I think it's fun.
What was the first video game that you remember playing?
Pokemon and Doom.
And Doom.
I love how those are on like opposite ends of the spectrum.
So I did not have any console or PC when I was growing up. I would go over to my cousin's house to play games, and I had 2 cousins. One was 7 years older than me and one was my age. The one 7 years older than me played Doom. The one my age played Pokemon. I played both.
That's hilarious. I bet your parents did not know you were playing Doom.
Probably not.
So what was the first actual like system that you owned?
PS4.
A PS4? Wow, really?
Yeah. I mean, I played a lot of PS2 and PS3. I would so like where I lived, there was a little gaming store, and you could like pay by the hour to play. So I did a lot of that. Yeah, I did a lot of that. Like I pretty much gamed like all through middle school through like that. But the first system I owned, PS4.
Oh, that's interesting. I have actually heard a lot of students that come from India that like they just like they didn't have the money to have repeatedly buy consoles, so they had like a Nintendo and then they had a PS4.
And I didn't even have an NES. I had like an NES knockoff. When I was little, and I did play Mario on that, but it was a knockoff. It was not real Nintendo system.
Well, obviously you learned enough from playing on the knockoff thing.
So what is your favorite game of all time?
Empires 2.
And why?
I used to be really good at the game. I used to be among the top 100 players in India when I was in high school.
Wow.
So Age of Empires 2. That was a long time ago, so I doubt I'm that good anymore. But that was the sole reason. I like being good at games. If I'm not good at games, I generally stop playing them. Simply because I can't focus on playing the game if I suck at it. I just get frustrated, and I'm like, I'm not going to play the game. I love that game. I used to be really good at it.
I think that's
used to be good at,
sorry. Okay, go Adam.
No, I was gonna say I used to be good at, I was not the top 100, but like Age of Empires 1 was my game of choice, and I'll occasionally hear like sound clips in like YouTube videos and everything, and it will immediately throw me back. I'll be like, wait a minute, that's the priest. He's trying to convert somebody. I know.
Like, no, I gotta fix that right now.
Oh my gosh, my husband has just adored those games.
Beautiful games.
I think it's interesting that you were such a great player, but you hadn't really considered going into games until.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting. Yeah, I didn't know what game dev was. I was like oblivious to it for some reason. Like I never thought about it. I wanted to be an astrophysicist. I wanted to either be an astrophysicist or a cricketer. There was no in between. Yeah, it was one of the two. Astrophysicist. I loved astrophysics. I still watch astrophysics videos in my spare time.
I do too, and I never could have ever been an astrophysicist, but I love that stuff. Did you play cricket when you were here?
No. Yeah, I gave up that sport. Not gave up, I gave up playing that sport a while ago.
Can we make like a special podcast that's just called like the duality of Utsav, and he can talk about like astrophysics and cricket, Doom and Pokemon. Like, let's explore all aspects of life.
Well, Adam, welcome to Technical Artist.
Yeah, right. There
I
you go.
keep myself open to experiences, all of them.
Yes, they hold 2 disparate things in their bodies all the time.
That's a very good point.
So that's how you know it.
So you mentioned Pokemon earlier. Who's your favorite Pokemon?
Pikachu. Yes, I'm that basic. I when I used to play Pokemon Blue, I would literally scour through that little forest at like the first few levels. I don't remember the exact place, but just to find a Pikachu, I would spend hours there because
Pikachu.
Pokemon Indigo League was my first like Pokemon show that I watched, and I loved that show. And that was the Ash and Pikachu show. So I was like, I love Pikachu. Ever since then, never changed, never will.
You know what? Don't apologize for that. It's okay to like the fan favorite. There's a reason they're the fan favorite.
Yeah, right. So is there a game in the past, in the whole 40 plus years of video games that you wish you could have worked on? Age of Empires 2?
Except for Age of Empires 2. You can't say that one.
Age of Empires, no, because like I think if I would have wanted to work on a game, it would have been League of Legends. And I've played that game so much.
I know.
I guess there's a little bit of bias in it, but I think like the game is like in a design point of view, I think that game is insane. Even in a coding, it's just in all points of view, like the amount of, I think, effort that has gone into making that game, I can't even imagine. Like, and I wish I could be a part of that. Maybe I will be one day. I hope so. But yeah.
Wouldn't that be fun if they called Unity and you got to work on something, like solved a problem for them? That'd be so fun.
That sounds dope. I was hoping for that.
So if you were given control of a studio, what type of game would you make?
Age of Empires 4.
No, I'm gonna have two answers to that. So my creative and design side would make an RTS game, but my side that knows and understands the world will not make an RTS game. I'd probably make a mobile game, free to play, monetize the shit out of it.
Because he's a practical human.
I think you're the only person who's given a practical answer to that question.
Yeah, I mean, after I have all that money, I can go make whatever game I want, right? I don't have to answer to anybody.
Right.
So yeah.
Flappy Bird, just do it.
Exactly.
What are you playing right now?
Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
Oh, me too, man. I just got a stupid freaking email from them that said how many hours in it that I have played, and I'm like,
you're like, I don't want to know that.
I just saved Sigurd, and he's such a jerk. And I'm like,
don't tell me. I've barely started it. Don't tell me. But it's just I haven't had time. I actually bought it like a month ago, and past month or two have been really busy.
And it's big. It's big.
Yeah, I've heard. I played Odyssey the whole way through. Is it bigger than Odyssey?
No, I don't. Okay. It doesn't feel like it's going to be as big as Odyssey. I mean, I probably had 400 hours into Odyssey.
Wow.
I think they said that Odyssey was the biggest of them all, wasn't it? I think.
I loved Cassandra.
I played as Cassandra too. Alexios's dialogue was just not good.
And I'm playing him as the male Eivor, and I really like him, and I like the voice actor, and I like all the, I love that. But Cassandra, I don't know. I don't know if it's because I'm a girl, but obviously, like I'm so attached to her. Like I could not let go of that game because I just kept like, why don't I have more things to do?
That's funny. I actually felt the same way. Maybe not because of the Cassandra thing. Just I think that game was actually the character. I love that game. I love all new Assassin's Creed games. I'm actually not a fan of the old Assassin's Creed. I know everybody.
I stopped playing it too because it bugged me. But I started Odyssey, and I'm like, I'm okay with this.
I was going to ask that question because I was ride or die Assassin's Creed until the last Ezio game, whatever that was, Revelations or Brotherhood or whatever.
I never played that, yeah.
And then I haven't played an Assassin's Creed game in 7 or 8 years.
Well, I'm hearing Origins is also good. Have you played Origins?
I have, yeah. Origins is great, and yeah, I think if you don't like Odyssey, you may like Origins because I think Origins is like the bridge between the RPG plus the Assassins meta. But I think the RPG is way better than the Assassin, personally speaking, because I don't know, I like it better.
Yeah, I was really worried about Valhalla because I started playing it in the middle of the winter, and I'm like, I cannot live in this Norway land. It's too cold. I'm cold. Everywhere I'm cold. And then you go to England. So I don't know if you've gone to England yet. It's so much better. So.
Yeah, no, I did see that. It felt cold. I'm looking forward to playing it. I started replaying Ghost of Tsushima a little bit. I love that game. That game is beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Yep, for sure.
And then the last question that we like to end on is, do you have any advice to either people who are graduating now or people who are considering a career in games, or perhaps advice to a wee little Utsav many years ago? Any advice to people learning what you've learned? Anything you want to give to the next generation?
Maybe a couple of things. I think one would be, never stop learning. If there's one thing, I think school isn't supposed to teach you everything. It's supposed to teach you how to learn. And I think one thing I've learned more in my past 2 years than I did ever at 16 years of school. And I've done 16 years of school, and I love school, and it's nothing bad about school. I think to be in games, you have to have this attitude of being able to learn all the time. It's like being in school all over again, but you just get paid for it. So that's
Instead
great
of
for
paying
me.
for it.
That sounds
Yeah.
better.
Yeah, and I think second would be, hey, the things can get tough. Like games is a hard industry for sure. Like it's not easy sometimes. Even people who are veterans, have trouble finding jobs. Make sure you're not a douche. I haven't had to apply for a job since my first job, because each of the jobs I was recruited for. So like, and that's not because, hey, I'm great at my job. It's because, hey, if somebody knows me, they'd be like, hey, maybe you should check out that person, right? And that's what happened at Fox Next. I knew somebody there, and we just met at GDC, and that person was like, hey, we're looking for a TA, and I think you'd be great. And I got that job. So I think be good to people, and don't give up. If you're really passionate about it, keep trying. So it only takes one chance. So, so somebody only has to take a chance on you one time, and you're probably good from there.
100%.
That's
I love that.
fantastic.
Yep. Oh, it's
I
so
have.
good to see you.
I know.
We will come and visit. We are going to come to Seattle.
I
So
can't wait.
we'll see you.
Bring the band together.
I'll buy you a beer.
Too, maybe.
Well, I don't know.
Even-
If he's in the office, he said he gets fresh brewed beer. Maybe we just go to the office.
Hey, I could totally have like a mixer at the office, like an EA mixer.
That would
That's
actually be
That's a
incredibly
plan.
dope.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I could book our cafeteria for that. So
Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Awesome.
I
Well,
hope to see
thank you
that
so
soon.
much, Utsav. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And we'll see you next time.
See you, everybody.
Bye.